Awesome. Hey, it's Tim Ria here live at the Durango Film Festival. We're at the Animus Chocolates Company, which is a really cool space. We got Gabriel Diamond.
Yeah.
And it's buzzing here. How are you doing?
I'm great. Great to be here. Meeting lots of filmmakers and wonderful vibe.
So Gabriel has more badges than I do, and everybody knows me from like doing a trillion events. So I want to congratulate you on the badge champion for 2023. Let's go to your background. What brings you out here?
Well, I made 4 short documentaries.
Yeah.
And I submitted all 4 of them, and they all got in. So,
I like the odds of winning like that. Like, you got to follow this guy. So, what's your background? How'd you get into all this?
You know, I was in 8th grade. It was the last day of school in 8th grade, many years ago. And I was on the bus going home, and my friend said, "Hey, do you know about that TV class happening?" This was in Oakland, California, and it was Oakland Public Schools had a TV class, and I was like, "TV class? No." And I found out about it, signed up for it, and the rest of my high school career, I spent learning video production. And
It's like video toaster days.
say again?
Video toaster days.
Exactly. The switchers, the fading, and all of
So
that.
you had a good mentor.
Yeah. I learned, on tape. So when you edit, if you want to go back and redo something, it means you lose a generation. So you got to get the edit right the first time. So
That's really important. Like what I always say is like, Final Pixel is what now the business is moving into with virtual production and stuff like that. So you have 4 films.
4 films. Yeah. They're all short documentaries.
Okay.
They're all really experimental. Each one really sprang from a what would happen if? What would it be like if? And then maybe we should bring a camera and see if we can capture this moment. And so, they're
It's more spontaneous combustion.
kind of, yeah. I mean, one it's called The Space Between Us, and it's a black dancer and a white dancer talking about race and gender and age and sexuality in a way that most of us never talk about.
What's the name of that one?
The Space Between Us.
Space Between.
And it's an experiment in witnessing and asking really intimate questions, and then they dance to each other. So it's I don't know, it makes people cry, it makes people go, oh man, that's brave.
How are you evoking emotion with your film style? Colors, sound. How do you express and grab people's emotional tale? It's interesting. There's color. There's all these different dynamics.
To me, it's about giving people permission to do something, to try something, to experience something, and setting up a space where people can be brave, and then capturing that and helping to share that story. So there's another film. It's called What Would Your Sign Say? And that film, basically, it's based on this project that we did called the Vulnerable Rally.
Nice.
The idea is you think of something that you would want to hide from the world, that you don't want people to know about you, and you write it out on a big sign and you hold that in public.
Oh, interesting.
And so you get a group of people together doing that all together, and you have some blank cardboard and some pens, so when people walk by, they're like, first they think it's a protest, or they think you're asking for something, and then they read the signs and they're just like, what are you
That's
doing?
kind of snap, crackle, pop, sizzle of spontaneous experimental film.
It's very experimental, and so it's, they're triggered.
Capture the raw.
Some people are like, you shouldn't do, get over it. That's not, that's not how you feel, or they're like, you shouldn't feel that way, and the whole gamut. Or most people are like, wow, thank you for, strangers on the street coming up to strangers, just saying like, thank you. No one has, now I feel less alone in my thing. And so we made a film about people doing that.
So that's 2.
Yeah.
So number 1, the name is what?
The Space Between Us.
Number 2 is?
What Would Your Sign Say?
And number 3 is?
how not to be a climate activist.
How not to be a climate activist. All right, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You can get in trouble with that these days, but it's also very interesting because there's so many different dynamics with what's going on in the planet right now.
Well, you know, I mean, climate change, it's a huge thing. It's this big existential threat. It's coming for us. And yet we all go about our lives like everything's normal.
Yeah.
We're just going to film festivals, doing our thing. So why aren't people screaming from the street? Why aren't people acting like it's an emergency? Because it's an emergency. So
Yeah, it's interesting how humans don't like. It's like we know this tidal wave's in front of us, but where's
So the premise of that is, what would it be like to have a person go out into the street screaming about climate change,
the? Awesome.
yelling at strangers? Like, what's wrong with
Get
you
it
people?
in your head. Yeah.
What's wrong with you people? Like,
How are you shooting? Are you like hiding the cameras then, or how you?
no, we just had the cameras. People can see there's a guy yelling and there's cameras following him. So you can tell immediately what this is about.
So what kind of interesting stories happen with that one?
Similar, you know, you could guess. There's a whole gamut. People are hopeless. They're afraid. They get angry.
I notice now like there's an uptick in my friend Jack. Hey Jack, his kids came over and like it was kind of like when I was a kid growing up and this nuclear bomb threat and stuff is now again kind of coming around with the situation on the planet.
Yeah. It's a huge threat that no one is. I mean, everyone's worried about it, but it's just like this like collectively held secret that no one wants to talk about. Cool. So we're just like, let's
Capture that.
Yeah.
Where were you shooting?
San Francisco, Union Square area.
SF has had dramatic changes in the last 20 years. I used to live down there, and
Oh yeah. I mean, we got the gamut of folks, you know, who are. It's a place where people can get wild. There's a culture of taking cultural risks in San Francisco in that way.
the Breakfast of Champions, the BOC, I know about. I'm an old house music DJ from 1015 Folsom days.
Yeah.
So number four film,
It's called Strangers in Boxes,
Strangers in Boxes.
and we filmed that in the midst of the pandemic. It takes place entirely on Zoom, and it's 50 activists from around the world, most of them strangers to each other. They don't know each other, all meeting on Zoom. And it's an experiment. You know, we all hate Zoom. No one wants to be on Zoom. But I wanted to see, can we capture real magic between people? Can we
On Zoom, yeah. That's the hardest thing with telepresence video conferencing is you're a little box.
Yeah, exactly. So can we how far can we push the constraints of the little webcam, the little thing, to actually create a cinematic experience on Zoom?
Yeah.
So it's a short little 5-minute piece, and it tends to make people cry and give them hope for humanity.
What was the secret sauce with extracting emotional binding with Zoom?
Permission and witnessing.
What does that mean?
You give people permission to ask each other the kinds of questions that most of us don't normally ask, and then you
break down the barriers.
And then you give them the space to answer, and so you capture that. So there's a magic that happens when we just ask each other, like, what's really in your heart right now? What do you want to express? And then we just give space for people to do that. And then the magic of editing and great music, and of course, with all of these, it's really brave people who have chosen to lean into something that's scary to a lot of people.
So now let's go back into your technology stack and how you're actually shooting this stuff and what's in your creator's gear garage.
I'm not super high tech with this stuff. We do our filming with like a Sony AR or something, the mirrorless camera with a little prime lens and a simple little sound thing. And I don't think we minimal lighting, It's all. I'm into making beauty on the cheap. Yeah.
And that's cool. I mean, what's cool now is you can do that.
Yeah. It's I used to geek out a lot on all the gear and things like that, but less so.
So how do people connect up with you?
Outsidefilms.com is my website. Gabriel
Outside-
Diamond is my name. Yeah.
Gabriel Diamond, the best name in the business, next to Rick Champagne, my friend at NVIDIA. So we got Gabriel Diamond. And it's kind of like a good model, like a venture capitalist would like roll a bunch of dice versus just one dice. So I like that, like it can do 4. But what are you trying to get out of the Durango Film Festival and these types of organizations?
The best is like having people talk about how the films moved them. Each of these
Feedback.
Yeah, I mean, and to hear that collective gasp in the audience. I mean, each of these pieces, they're really short. They're 5 minutes each, or around 5 minutes, but they really bring out a lot of emotion and stuff of just like what humans are capable of, the kindness, the bravery, how much we care about each other, about our lives, about this world, and they bring that out. They give hope without it being saccharine. It's heavy dose of reality, but it's also a little bit uplifting. Yeah.
So what days are your films showing here?
They're both in the kindness block and the close to home block. Nice. So they're in 2 of each of those blocks of shorts.
Cool. So we got Gabriel Diamond. Do check him out. 4-time world champion film submission artist.
Look at this.
Super genius.
All of it right here. I'm coming close to show you all the films you can see, face to the name to the face.